The one place you're not supposed to leave. Concrete walls, steel doors, guards with rifles, entire systems built on one promise: no escape. And yet again and again some people slip through. A storm in the night, a helicopter slicing down from the sky, a tunnel carved in secret, inch by inch through dirt and stone. These aren't movie plots, these are real. In Japan, a man nicknamed the Prison Break Magician escaped 4 times, each attempt stranger than the last. In Northern Ireland, 38 men once blasted out of a prison so secure the government called it escape-proof. In France, a gangster hijacked a helicopter and flew over the walls like it was a video game. Every escape is a riddle. How did they do it? Who failed? And what price did they pay once they ran free? Tonight, we're counting down 10 of the most unbelievable prison escape attempts in history. Not Hollywood, not fiction, real men, real prisons, and the moments when walls meant nothing. 1. Yoshi Shiratori, the Japanese Houdini. In Japan, one man became so notorious for breaking out of prisons that his name is still whispered decades later: Yoshi Shiratori. To guards, he was a nightmare. To the public, he was almost a folk hero. And to history, he's remembered as the man who refused to stay locked up. Shiratori's first escape came in 1936. Imprisoned for theft and later accused of murder, he was sent to Aomori Prison, a place with freezing winters and brutal guards. He noticed that every night, the guards grew lazy with routine. So one stormy evening, he slipped through the small metal lock on his cell using a piece of wire taken from a bucket. By the time anyone noticed, he was gone. But that was just the beginning. After being caught again, he was transferred to Akita Prison. Here, guards put him under constant surveillance, convinced he'd never escape twice. They underestimated him. Over months, he studied the rusted window bars in his cell. Slowly, with bare hands and patience, he loosened them. One rainy night, he squeezed through and vanished once again. The legend kept growing. In another prison, he escaped by climbing through a skylight. In yet another, he dug through the prison floor with a spoon. Every escape humiliated Japanese authorities, exposing just how flawed their maximum security really was. Shiratori wasn't escaping just for freedom. He claimed he was escaping abuse. He told anyone who would listen that guards beat him, starved him, and treated him like less than human. Whether you believe him or not, his story turned him into a symbol, the man who defied the system over and over. By the end, Yoshi Shiratori had escaped 4 prisons in total, something no Hollywood scriptwriter could dream up without sounding ridiculous. And yet, it was all real. That's why, to this day, he carries the nickname, the Prison Break Magician of Japan. 2. The Maze Prison Escape, Northern Ireland, 1983. In 1983, the British government called the Maze Prison escape-proof. It was a maximum security facility designed to hold some of the most dangerous men in Northern Ireland, members of the Provisional IRA. But on September 25th, that illusion shattered. 38 prisoners pulled off the biggest jailbreak in UK history. The plan was bold, military-like in precision. Small firearms had been smuggled in. Prison officers were taken hostage at gunpoint. Keys were stolen, gates forced open. The prisoners hijacked a food delivery truck, loaded themselves inside, and made a run for it. Chaos erupted as alarms blared and guards tried to respond, but the operation was too large to stop. 38 men actually made it outside the walls that day. Some were recaptured in the following weeks, others disappeared back into the underground networks of the IRA. The escape humiliated the British government and exposed deep vulnerabilities in a system that was supposed to be unbreakable. To supporters of the IRA, it was a symbol of defiance. To the authorities, it was a disaster that proved even the toughest prisons had cracks waiting to be exploited. The maze escape wasn't a clever tunnel or a single man's daring trick. It was a small army of inmates turning the prison into a battlefield and winning, if only for a moment. 3. The Alcatraz Escape, 1962, Alcatraz, The Rock. America's most infamous prison. Surrounded by icy waters and strong currents, it was designed to be escape-proof. But in June 1962, 3 men decided to test that legend, and may have beaten it. Frank Morris and brothers Clarence and John Anglin spent months chiseling through the walls of their cells with spoons stolen from the cafeteria. They concealed their progress with painted cardboard panels and even rigged a makeshift drill out of a stolen vacuum motor. Behind their cells, they built a secret workshop where they prepared for freedom. Their most ingenious creation was a raft and life vests made from more than 50 stolen raincoats. stitched together with prison thread and glue. To fool the guards during night checks, they crafted dummy heads from soap, toilet paper, and real human hair taken from the prison barbershop. On the night of June 11th, they made their move. The dummies kept the guards at bay while the men squeezed through the holes in their walls, climbed the pipes, and reached the roof. From there, they carried the raft to the water's edge, inflated it, and paddled into the dark San Francisco Bay. The FBI claimed they drowned in the frigid waves, but over the years, rumors and evidence surfaced, a photo here, a letter there, suggesting they may have survived. To this day, their fate is officially unknown. The Alcatraz escape is remembered not just for the daring plan, but for the haunting mystery it left behind. Did they drown, or did they pull off the impossible? 4. Redwayne Fade, The Helicopter Escape, 2018, July 1st, 2018. A quiet Sunday morning at Row Prison just outside Paris. In the visiting hall, gangster Redwayne Fade was speaking with his brother. Outside, a stolen helicopter suddenly appeared above the prison. Within minutes, the impossible became reality. 3 armed men had hijacked a flight instructor and forced him to pilot directly into the courtyard. As the helicopter hovered, the team blasted through prison doors with power tools and smoke bombs. Guards were overwhelmed. In less than 10 minutes, Fade was in the chopper, rising above the walls like a scene ripped from a movie. This wasn't his first time. Fade had already escaped prison once before in 2013, using explosives to break through multiple doors. He was a career robber known for his obsession with Hollywood heist films. And in 2018, he lived out one of his own. The escape humiliated French authorities. A nationwide manhunt followed, with checkpoints, roadblocks, and raids. For 3 months, Fade remained free until police tracked him down at an apartment north of Paris. The helicopter escape proved that even in the 21st century, with maximum security systems in place, sheer boldness and planning could still crack the walls. For a few minutes, Fade made prison look like a movie set, but reality caught up with him fast. 5. The Great Escape, Stalag Luft, The 3, 1944. World War II created some of the most daring prison escapes in history, but none are as legendary as what happened at Stalag Luft 3, a German prisoner of war camp built to hold captured Allied airmen. It was supposed to be escape-proof. The Germans had studied every previous breakout attempt and designed this camp with those lessons in mind. The barracks were raised off the ground to expose tunneling. The soil was sandy and noisy, making digging nearly impossible. Guards patrolled constantly, towers loomed over the fences, and floodlights lit the night. But inside those walls, the prisoners weren't thinking about surrender. They were planning. The idea was simple but massive. Dig 3 tunnels, nicknamed Tom, Dick, and Harry, all at once. If one was discovered, the guards would assume the prisoners had given up, while the others continued in secret. The tunnels were dug 30 feet below the surface to avoid detection by microphones planted in the ground. Prisoners used bedboards to shore up the walls, tin cans as shovels, and even built ventilation systems out of stolen ducting. The ingenuity didn't stop there. They created maps, forged documents, sewed civilian clothes out of blankets, and even crafted compasses out of melted phonograph records. The operation involved hundreds of men, all sworn to secrecy, working in shifts for months. On the night of March 24, 1944, the plan was put into action. One by one, prisoners crawled through the tunnel nicknamed Harry, but disaster struck early. The tunnel came up just short of the tree line, leaving men exposed as they exited. Still, the escape pressed on. For hours, men slipped out into the freezing night, disappearing into the forest. By dawn, 76 prisoners had made it out. Their taste of freedom was short-lived. A massive manhunt followed, with German soldiers, police, and even civilians scouring the countryside. Most of the escapees were recaptured within days. Only 3 men managed to make it back to Allied territory. Then came the tragedy that forever marked the Great Escape. Hitler, furious at the humiliation, ordered 50 of the recaptured men executed as a warning to others. Their deaths overshadowed the brilliance of the plan, reminding the world of the brutality of war. The Great Escape became legend not because it succeeded, but because it represented defiance. Surrounded by barbed wire, watchtowers, and death, these men refused to accept captivity. They dug with spoons, built with scraps, and risked everything for a chance at freedom, knowing most of them would not make it. Hollywood later turned the story into a blockbuster, romanticizing the daring effort with motorcycle chases and dramatic stunts. But the truth is both more inspiring and more tragic. 76 men crawled under the earth for freedom, and 50 never came back. 6. John Dillinger, Crown Point Jail, 1934. In the 1930s, John Dillinger was America's most famous outlaw, a bank robber so bold that newspapers called him public enemy number one. In January 1934, after a string of heists, Dillinger was finally captured and locked in Crown Point Jail, Indiana, a facility the sheriff proudly declared escape-proof. Dillinger didn't agree. On March 3, 1934, he made his move. Armed guards watched every corridor, and yet Dillinger walked out the front door, holding nothing but a fake gun. The legend goes that he carved it from a piece of wood, blackened it with shoe polish, and used it to bluff his way past multiple guards. Some claim it was a real smuggled pistol, but either way, the result was the same. He ordered the guards into cells, locked them inside, and stole the sheriff's brand new Ford V8. With a smile and a wave, Dillinger drove off, humiliating the system and cementing his reputation as untouchable. The escape electrified the public. For some, Dillinger was a criminal genius, a Robin Hood figure sticking it to authority. For others, he was proof that America's law enforcement was outmatched. Either way, Crown Point's escape-proof jail became a punchline overnight. Of course, Dillinger's freedom didn't last. Months later, the FBI tracked him down outside a Chicago theater, ending his story in a hail of bullets. But his wooden gun escape remains one of the most famous jailbreaks in American history. Proof that sometimes, all it takes is nerve and a little imagination to walk out of an impossible cage. 7. Pascal Paillet. The helicopter escapes. In France, one man turned helicopter breakouts into his signature move. His name, Pascal Paillet. A convicted armed robber, Paillet wasn't satisfied with serving time, so he decided to fly over the walls. The first escape came in 2001. Friends hijacked a helicopter and landed it right inside a prison yard in Lunay, southern France. In minutes, Paillet was airborne and gone. It was bold, cinematic, and humiliating for French authorities. But Paillet didn't stop there. In 2003, he returned the favor, organizing another helicopter escape, this time helping 3 fellow inmates break free. It wasn't just about his own freedom anymore. It was about proving the system could be mocked over and over. Authorities tightened security, transferred him to different facilities, and labeled him one of the most dangerous escape artists in Europe. But even that didn't stop him. In 2007, he pulled it off again. Armed men hijacked a helicopter, landed on the roof of Grass Prison, and whisked Paillet away in broad daylight. Guards could only watch as he rose above their walls like a scene straight out of an action movie. His freedom never lasted long. He was eventually recaptured each time. But Paillet's legacy is unique. He didn't just escape once. He escaped multiple times, each with the same daring method, making helicopters the ultimate symbol of his defiance. For France, it was a nightmare. For Paillet, it was proof that sometimes the sky really is the limit. 8. El Chapo Altiplano Prison, 2015. Joaquin El Chapo Guzman wasn't just Mexico's most feared drug lord. He was its most slippery prisoner. By 2015, he had already humiliated the government once with a prison escape. So when he was captured again and locked in Altiplano, Mexico's highest security prison, officials swore it was impossible for him to break free. They were wrong. On the night of July 11th, guards checked his cell as usual. El Chapo paced, then stepped into the shower, the only blind spot the cameras couldn't see. Minutes later, he was gone. When guards rushed in, they found a hole in the floor. Beneath it stretched a tunnel more than a mile long, leading from his shower stall all the way to a nearby construction site. This wasn't a crude dig. The tunnel had ventilation, lighting, and even a motorcycle on rails to ferry tools and dirt. It was an engineering marvel, and it opened up directly under the nose of Mexico's most secure prison. The escape was an international humiliation. How could a tunnel of that scale be built without officials knowing? Bribes, corruption, and inside help were almost certainly part of the plan. For El Chapo, it was proof that in Mexico, money and loyalty could still outwit any walls. Of course, his freedom didn't last. He was recaptured months later and eventually extradited to the United States, where ADX Florence now holds him with no tunnels, no blind spots, and no chance of escape. But the Altiplano breakout remains one of the most spectacular prison escapes in modern history, the kind of story Hollywood might reject for being too unrealistic. 9. The Libby Prison Escape, 1864. In the middle of the American Civil War, one of the largest prison breaks in U.S. history unfolded inside the walls of Libby Prison, a Confederate prison in Richmond, Virginia. The prison held hundreds of captured Union officers crammed into filthy, overcrowded rooms with little food and no real hope of release. But a group of determined men refused to wait. In early 1864, they began digging a tunnel. Using only knives, spoons, and whatever tools they could scavenge, they burrowed through a fireplace, down into the earth, and slowly tunneled beneath the prison walls. The work was exhausting and dangerous. The tunnel stretched over 50 feet long, dug entirely in secret, while guards patrolled just above their heads. On the night of February 9th, the plan was executed. One by one, men crawled through the narrow passage, emerging in a nearby tobacco shed outside the prison yard. In total, 109 Union soldiers escaped into the city. Confederate forces were stunned. Not all made it to freedom. Some were quickly recaptured, others lost in the chaos. But 59 men successfully reached Union lines, a massive blow to Confederate pride and a morale boost for the North. The Libby prison escape wasn't flashy. There were no helicopters, no gunfights, no elaborate disguises, just determination, grit, and the will to claw through dirt toward freedom. In the end, it became legend, proof that even in the darkest days of war, men would risk everything for one more breath of liberty. 10. The Texas 7, 2000, December 13, 2000. At the Connolly unit in Kennedy, Texas, 7 inmates pulled off one of the most infamous prison escapes in American history. They weren't small-time criminals. They were men serving long sentences for violent crimes, and they were desperate for freedom. The plan unfolded in the prison maintenance shop. The 7 overpowered civilian workers and guards tied them up and stole their uniforms.
They started knocking them off one by one and taking them hostage and tying them up.
Armed with stolen weapons, they bluffed their way past multiple security points. Then they broke into the prison armory, seizing more guns and ammunition. Before anyone could react, they had stolen a maintenance truck and driven straight out the front gate. Once free, the group launched a crime spree across Texas. They robbed stores, stole vehicles, and lived as fugitives, while the state launched one of the largest manhunts in its history. The media dubbed them the Texas 7, and their story dominated headlines. But freedom came at a cost. On Christmas Eve, the gang robbed a sporting goods store where they murdered a police officer during the getaway. That killing turned public outrage into a frenzy. The manhunt intensified. Over the following weeks, 6 of the 7 were captured in Colorado after being recognized from an episode of America's Most Wanted. The 7th took his own life before police could arrest him. The Texas 7 proved that even in modern, high-security prisons, opportunity and teamwork could still break the walls. But their violent rampage after escaping made sure they would never be remembered as heroes, only as proof that desperation can turn into destruction. 10 escapes, 10 cracks in walls built to hold the unholdable. Some ended in freedom, most ended in capture, but all proved one truth: no prison is perfect. We love these stories because they tap into something primal, the dream of breaking free, of defying the system even for a moment. These men risked everything, and whether you see them as villains or legends, their escapes remind us that walls alone can't crush human desperation. If this countdown gripped you, don't just disappear like these escapees tried to. Hit the like button, share this with someone who loves wild, true stories, and subscribe for more deep dives into the unbelievable but true. Because sometimes, the real stories are crazier than anything Hollywood could ever invent.